different things like Celtic, shaman, and taking bits from all of them. I guess because there's so much there that I want to unpack and ask you about all of these different things that you've researched. But what kind of pivotal teachings from all these different traditions or parts of evolution have you taken and put into your world now? Who makes what makes Linda Linda now, or in terms of what you've taken from all of these different traditions, practices, the Wicca, the witches? What do you still incorporate in your life at this point?
Wow, well, that's a great question. I think I've internalized or integrated a lot of it, especially when the experiences were very real and part of life for me. So the whole witchcraft, the whole reclaiming thing was over a period of 7, 8 years. So I really learned to understand the natural rhythms of life. I learned to watch the moon. I learned to set intention when you are uh, creating spells, which is really just intentional prayer. It's the same thing. So I have an altar that's always a working altar, that I set my intention of what it is that I want to work with, what I need to focus on in my life at the moment. So that's that's all very present in my life and always has been. The kind of witchy, the herbally side of witchcraft, the love of the natural world in terms of
Mm.
plant life. I became a homeopath, so I was using herbs as a homeopath formerly. So I brought it into that. The astrology, I'm always conscious of the astrology. It is just fascinating and so important that we understand what's going on in the stars for us. I've tracked, I mean, when I was after I left the nannying, I then became a well, after a bit of a journey, I became a counsellor working in San Francisco General Hospital in a methadone clinic for people with HIV and AIDS who were triple diagnosed. So they were psychiatric, so they had mental health issues, they had addiction, heroin addiction, and they had HIV AIDS. So it was a pretty intense time, and I was there for 6 years. And in that time, astrology really came alive for me. And I used to have the San Francisco General, they would give us a big calendar, massive big calendar, big numbers and stuff. And alongside all those numbers every month was every single transit that I was going through, everything that was happening astrologically. So I could trace and track every day what was happening.
Ah.
So that was really, really big for me at that time. And tarot throughout, I would always go to either tarot or I Ching, which was another divination tool, which I absolutely love, for help. Any big guidance, anything that I was kind of stuck on, there would be me, busy with us. Still am, still will go to the I Ching for big decisions,
What is the I Ching?
confirmation.
I've never heard of it before, actually.
So there's some of these white books up here.
Uh-huh.
Um, oh no, the grey books, or maybe both. I think both. Yeah, I think both. Yeah, there's an I Ching one there, and then there's some at the end. It's the Chinese divination system. It's absolutely fantastic. It's so beautifully written. It's really poetry, and it's ancient, very, very ancient. And they used to use I believe it was sticks that you would just drop them in phases of 6, and there's a patterning that you work out. Later on, they started using coins, and so you just throw and you kind of work out positionings, and then it gives you a particular little image, and that image is, I did know them at one time, but again, my memory, I think I'd have exploded if I if I remembered everything that I'd ever learned. So I just gotta let it go. It's like man above mountain, or the river runs smooth. It's like that kind of thing, and it gives you a whole like little fantastically dramatically historical and contextual, culturally contextual a story, and you can see what's happening with your life in terms of that story. So it's really fun. So I use the runes as well, of course. I made my own, my very first set of runes myself, probably about at least 30 years ago. So the runes are another divination tool that I use. So it's just what I fancy, really. It's like if probably whatever's there.
What's your number one go-to? It sounds like it's the tarot. Right, okay. By the indication of
Tarot.
you now holding the tarot, you whip that out in mega speeds. That was in less than a second, Linda. It was out.
I have a
That...
few more out in a goes on and on and on. I've got hundreds of them. I'm surrounded.
So it sounds like you went through this period where you then, like you rightly said, you everything was shut down through one way or another. Then
Yeah.
you went on this research journey. What point did it suddenly switch back on? Was that consciously, or one? How did that happen?
So I was developing, I believe that spirit wanted me to really focus on developing my intuitive stroke psychic abilities. I believe it's the same thing. They wanted me to work on that, develop that. So I trained as a counselor. And
Hmm.
that was very much about being able to read people, being able to tune into people, use your intuition, etc., etc. So that was going on. Then the homeopathy started around the time that my son was born. He's now 23, so quite a long time ago. And at that time, I was, the homeopathy was happening, which is also case taking. So you're problem solving, you're case taking, you're understanding and reading the person.
Hmm.
Then I'm very much like a Pac-Man. Do you remember? Well, you probably don't remember, but you
Oh,
probably
I
have.
remember
Do you remember
Pac-Man.
Pac-Man?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm like a Pac-Man for information. I've got a lot of planets in my ninth house. It's like I want to learn, 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 learn. And so I was really fascinated in this whole thing about just being able to understand the world and knowing how to kind of work the world. And so I was learning, as I've said. And then it got to the point that I got a bit bored with life. I kind of like, I'd done pretty much everything and it felt like I'd done it. I loads of traveling and
Mm.
etc. etc. And I went to my homeopath, an amazing guy called Stephen Silver, who created, he was a medium on platform. He's now late 60s, maybe early 70s. And he was a medium when he was 17, and he was going around as a platform medium. So in those days, that was pretty unusual.
Mm.
Very, very young.
Mm.
Incredible guy. And he created a machine that makes homeopathic remedies. And he was a very special mentor. And I went to see him and I said, look, I've kind of had it, because I had a lot of visions that never stopped. And I said, look, I've seen Jesus and I've seen Ganesh and I've seen angels and I've done this and I've done that and I've done the other. And it's got to the point now that unless God stands in front of me in 3D and speaks to me directly, I'm just not interested anymore. It's like I've done everything and my life
Mm.
feels stagnant. I need something that's going to wake me up and just kind of bring me back into life again. And so he gave me a homeopathic remedy, and he said to me, I love telling this story. He said to me, are you sure you want to take this? And I said, yeah, absolutely. And he said, well, fire will come out of every orifice of your body. Are you sure you want to take this? And I went, yeah. He said, okay, are you ready? Yeah. Open your mouth then. Put this little pill in my mouth. I was like, oh, well, why not? And then literally my life fell apart, absolutely fell apart. It's like, massive bust up with my family members, and, things just dramatically changed. And
What
I
was
was
the
so,
pill?
it's a remedy called Ignis, which is fire. Don't take it.
What?
It comes with a warning.
So I just want to rewind a bit because I'm intently sitting on the edge of my chair listening to everything. So you you go to the homeopath, Stephen,
Yeah.
because things are stagnating, and you decide that you want either kind of excitement or something to reignite a passion.
Yeah.
So he then suggests, what level of due diligence did you do before taking The pill. Was you? Did you just? I'm just wondering how you came to find out about Ignis.
Well, I didn't know anything. I knew Ignis, but I didn't know it. I was a homeopath by then, so
Yes.
it's kind of like I know the power of homeopathy is incredible. It's very subtle. It's very different from psychedelics. Psychedelics just go into your system and they blow your sockets, and you have incredible experiences sometimes, not always, and sometimes they can be horrific. Sometimes nothing can happen, but it blows the sockets and you don't know how you get there. It's like your body doesn't really engage in the process. With homeopathic remedies, your body is given something that it already knows, and it recognizes it's an energy medicine, and it naturally slowly kind of unfolds. So it's not like a 24 hours of stuff that you can't bring back and integrate. Sometimes you can with
Oh.
psychedelics. Very well supported, very well supervised microdosing or whatever in a therapeutic environment where the people absolutely know what they're doing, then I can see its uses, psychedelic uses, definitely. But unfortunately, it's often taken in ways that particularly for sensitive people, they can't manage it and they can't integrate it and they can't kind of bring it back to their daily lives. It goes from, you're suddenly put on, another planet, and then you're brought back to Earth. It's like, what am I supposed to do now? But homeopathy unfolds the layers much more gently. So it was a process of about 10 years, I'd say, the whole cycle of that remedy. In fact, the progression, the things that it kicked off.
Was it a single pill, or
Yeah,
was you talking? It was.
it was. Yeah. And this is in my practice when when I've given remedies to people. Now, arnica is the remedy that most people know. So they'll take it for bruising, and it might help a little bit with bruising, or if they're, if they've had an traumatic injury, sometimes it helps with shock, stuff like that. You can take a pill for a cold or any kind of acute condition. But there's another level of homeopathy when I was working as a homeopath, I liked to develop with my patients, where you are just changing that, not you, but the remedies are just changing the whole life. They are basically allowing the soul to come through and express itself fully in ways that the human experience has not allowed, and that has kind of constricted. And so it opens up, very gently opens up the soul. So there's that whole other way of working, because it's energy. You can make a homeopathic remedy out of a crystal, out of, anything, the North Pole, the South Pole, fire, herbs,
Mm.
plants, anything. You're getting the energy signature of that, whatever it is, and giving it to the human. I heard recently that African ivory is very good for the early stages of dementia. It doesn't cure it, but it slows the progression. So
Mm.
things like that are absolutely amazing. And I really do believe it's one of the most miraculous medicines we have. And unfortunately, it's been demonized, much like things like witchcraft, which actually is, if it's done properly, is just working with the natural cycles of life in a very beautiful way. But sometimes the world's just not ready for these things. So
I
yes, I
find
took.
that fascinating. I was
Yeah,
literally scribbling away notes there because I'd never heard of it before. Obviously, I've heard of psychedelics, but I think you make some really interesting points about them as well, because I think there's a lot to be said, and it was really peeking up my ears there when you were talking about that. But it is that integration piece, if you're going on a profound experience, and then 6 hours later you're back. How do you apply that? And it's because I've started being very interested in psychedelics, because I'm starting to wonder how is it that I'm trying all this time to sort of meditate and whatever, and someone else can take it and get to that place immediately. But then I think, well, how are they getting there? What is the journey to their destination? So
yeah,
that's interesting. So you took the Ignis,
yeah.
and sort of what happened from that point?
So I took the Ignis, and a few things happened. One of the things that happened was a friend of mine, very dear friend of mine, said to me, and I always listened to her when she told me what to do. And she said, "Look, you've done so much. You've tried so many things. You've been interested in so many things, and the one thing you've never really pursued that is so obvious is mediumship. It's like developing, you've done all the psychic stuff, the stuff with the dad, but you've never worked with the other side of life. It's like, what's going on?" And I said, "Well, I'm scared. I'm literally scared to start opening that up because it was open and that was scary for me. And I just don't know what I'd find." Anyway, so she said, "I think you should go to a workshop." So I went to a wonderful workshop with a gentleman who's unfortunately in spirit now, Henry Cummings, who was a wonderful teacher and a wonderful man. And he did a 1-day workshop at the College of Psychic Studies. And at the beginning and doing the intro, he said, what do you think is stopping you from being a medium, or some questions like that. And I said, I watch The Omen, I know what's out there. It's scary. And he said to me, one of the sentences that probably most changed my life in a way. He said, I don't know your family, but I can guarantee you there are scarier people in your own family than you'll ever meet on the other side of life. I was like, really? Well, that's great. Fantastic news. I'm ready. And then we did a chakra, I don't know what it was, a chakra clearing or a chakra opening, chakra awareness, but some kind of meditation. And when it got to the solar plexus, I just felt some massive opening. And he said afterwards, he said, "That was really weird, Linda. When we got to the solar plexus, something happened because there was a little candle, the little candles that have the little automatic flickers that have a little battery."
Yes, yes,
He said,
yes.
"That's been sitting there for years, never doing anything. Suddenly you got to your solar plexus and suddenly the light went on and it started flickering like crazy." And then the next exercise, that we had to bring through somebody and make a link, and it was like, boom, opened up again. So
And then from that moment onwards, you were connected, and that's kind of what took you into mediumship.
yes. So that took me to me, and along the same track at the same time was a whole new group of people that I'd met because of the Ignis, which had happened a couple of weeks later. I met this group who were very much into crop circles and off-world beings, extraterrestrials, exo studies, whatever you want to call it. And it was a group of people that I felt very connected to. There were strange things, loads of synchronicities and all sorts of wild happenings. And that led me to consciousness studies, where I started to get really serious about understanding what reality is in terms of the mind and the soul, but not on a mediumship level, but on a consciousness level. Like, what is consciousness? And that led me down a whole other avenue.
You know what my next question's going to be, Linda. You know it. You.
Ask it anyway, just
Yeah,
in
I'm
case
gonna, I'm gonna,
you're
I'm
gonna
gonna,
get the right
I'm
one.
gonna ask it, but I don't know if this is an impossible question to even ask during the podcast because it's such a big question. But what, from your consciousness studies, what conclusion have you reached on what consciousness is, and what are the different levels? What's your kind of current understanding of consciousness? Is that a question that's answerable?
I don't know, but I can give you I can say something. Who knows what will come out of my mouth?
Yeah, well, go. I love the fact that everything you're saying is about research, lived experiences, and I'm just so interested to know what I want to unpack what's going on. What's your understanding currently? Because it's been made up of so many different, and I think, like you rightly said earlier on, you're taking bits. You don't retain a lot, but the bits that you need for, I guess, your soul's evolution, you've taken with you. And I'm kind of interested, from all this studying experiences, what is your understanding now?
Yeah. Okay. So I'll tell you what happened on the day of my, what they call second birth in the one particular tradition that I was in. Well, there were lots of busyness. There was workmen in the house. We were the three of us, my husband, myself, and my little boy at the time, were upstairs in a tiny little room, sleeping there while they were doing stuff down here. So it was chaos. I was running around like mad. And I had been doing some work on this sense of void. I don't know if you've ever heard about people talking about the void, but there's this thing that happens in some people's with a psychedelic experience, deep meditation, or whatever, where you have this feeling that there's absolutely nothing there on that there really is nothing, that we don't exist, and there's that feeling of the void. And so I'd been doing some work on that, but not really paying much attention to it. And I was in the bath, having a bath, and so busy, wasn't really thinking. My mind was sort of elsewhere, and I saw a squirrel at the bottom of the bath, just sitting there with an acorn. And that wasn't unusual to see something, a little vision like that out of the blue. But I just kind of was looking, wasn't thinking. And then all of a sudden, I felt like my head no longer existed and that I was part of everything. So, what you and some other people have heard of this idea that we're connected to everything, that connectedness was absolutely embodied. It was a feeling that I understood and lived experience, as you said. And also this sense of onlyness. There is only this, there is only this fluid experience of absolutely everything in one. So it's only, the world is only this. And it was strange. I just went about my day and just carried on. But I felt much more connected. And so I realized, in terms of shortcutting to your answer, is that I realized that there is a lot more to this than I thought there was. We are all capable, every single one of us is capable of experiencing that absolute connectedness. We just kid ourselves that we can't, in the same way we kid ourselves that we can't hear spirit. It's just the human mind messing with us, or structured in a way that limits us. When you take those safety wheels off the bicycle, you just literally are in this it's the thing about being in the moment, but you're in the moment, inside of everything and nothing all at once. So it's impossible. People talk about it, you can point at it, you can try and talk about it, but it's very difficult, because it's something you have to experience.
You're trying to put something up that's not humanly or physical into physical language. It's just you just have to be very good at using adjectives, don't you, to try and describe this, I guess. You said that everyone is capable of experiencing this, but it's the
Yeah.
human mind that gets in the way, which I can definitely relate to. How does What would you say is the determining factor of someone being capable when experiencing it? What does one need to do to kickstart the process, so to speak? What, from all of your years of experience?
I don't think there's anything you can really do. You can make yourself more available to it, but I think it's either going to happen or it isn't. I know people who've done very deep meditation for most of their lives and have never reached a point of really understanding or experiencing what I experienced. And I'm not saying that's only one level, because I think you go through deeper and deeper levels of that. It's almost like, how much do you want to expand? How much do you want to hold of reality? Because it's quite intense. It then becomes quite painful. It's like, wait a minute. What about the human? What about the me? What about the marriage? What about being a mother? Suddenly all those things have different meaning to you. And that's really hard to live as a human when you kind of have a different understanding. And so it's what you want to allow in. It's where your soul is. It's what you're meant to
Mm.
experience. I know if I look back and I trace back, there was a definite journey that I was being guided. There's no question. I would always fall into the right place, the right teachers at the right time. I was always given those opportunities, and it was just my lifetime to do that at this.
Do you think that's because you've always been listening to your intuition from a very young age? Do you think it's these opportunities were put in front of you, or do you think it's your because you've been listening to that, it seems, since day dot?
I have. I also think it's partly epigenetics, like the trauma in my family line that has created a hypervigilance in me.
Hmm.
So I was awake before, I was awake in a way. The minute I was born, I was watching everything and observing because of the trauma in my family. And there is that connection with trauma and mediumship or psychic abilities. So
Mm.
I think I was watching for that reason. If you look at my chart, you'll see my astrological chart, you'll see that, there's a lot of that going on anyway. So that was the map I was born with. So I think it was destined. I think it was destiny. I think it was what was supposed to happen. And if everybody can live a life of meaning and satisfaction and connection, everybody, um, and what happens to them along the way, whether it's the experience of consciousness or whether it is, being able to make a link or whatever it is, it's powerful. There's no hierarchy here at all. It's just different strokes for different folks. And so it's just about being able to say, okay, I'm going to say yes to taking risks in terms of my development. And way back when, Henry Cummings said to me in College of Psychic Studies, one of the most important things in mediumship development or psychic development is to be brave. And you have to be brave. And you have to come to a point where you accept and trust that spirit is there guiding you. I mean, I've had an incredible dream life where I've had amazing things that have happened to me, guiding me in dreams. So maybe I was more aware of that, and somebody else might have had that dream but not been aware of it.
Mm.
So I don't know is the answer to your question. I think there's lots to it, and I don't like anyone who tries to kind of say this is how it should be, and this is because of this, that, and the other, because we don't know. It's all mystery. It's all a mystery.
There's so much to it, and
Yeah.
literally your explanations are fascinating. How has because you made an interesting point. You go through these layers, and I have heard other people describe this before myself, where they start to question everything because of the relevancy of it. Being so intuitive from a young age and going through this journey, how has that affected you and relationships with people? Are all your friends sort of mediums? Are you you friends with any moguls, or how does that affect your life in terms of relation? Because I found it myself difficult because you're so highly sensitive. How do you form those relationships? And I found that even myself, my circle of friends seems to be mainly mediums now. So how do you navigate that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's very true. My best friends are someone I went to nursery school with that has absolutely no interest in this stuff whatsoever. Um, People that I work with,
Mm.
and a lot of childhood friends actually, and very few mediums. And I think that's because I'm older. I came to mediumship older. And so the psychic stuff that I traveled a lot. So, I've still got very close best friend witches or a witch in San Francisco and friends with other witches there. So it's been whatever I'm into at the time. And I've kind of kept those friends. So I had homeopath friends, I've had counselling friends, and yeah, and so, but I understand what you're saying, and I completely agree with you. It is difficult because we speak a different language, and we have a
Mm.
different idea of the world. And I've been very good at camouflaging myself. I had to, when I was doing homeopathy, because homeopathy is so demonized that if you bring any crystals into it or anything woo woo, as we call it, into it, they're not going to take you seriously. So all these books for years were in boxes, and there were just white cupboards in my treatment room where I'm sitting now. And that was it. It was very clinical, very doctory, and I had to be that way, and I had to be very careful about the way I presented things. It was very much about physical ailments, but in the background, I'm doing other stuff, medical intuition, checking out what's going on, and giving them remedies that I know will open them up. And several months later, they're coming in and asking me about, oh, I'm really interested in mediumship. Do you think there's anything to that, or whatever? So people would kind of open up, but I've been very good at hiding myself. And I think that's because I have had past lives, as at least one that I had a very strong recollection of as being burned at the stake, of putting your head above the parapet. You have to be really, really careful, because people do not like it for various different reasons. Cassandra Complex is a great book I read many years ago about how it's a Jungian analysis book related to Jungian analysis, about how people who see the truth get treated really badly. And I've always been a truth teller. It's like I've always seen the truth in other people because I've been sensitive, and
Why do they get treated badly?
because people don't want to know the truth.
Oh, it's that simple, Linda.
Yeah, absolutely it is. It astonishes
Oh,
me. I sometimes sit here thinking, am I in the same world as this person? It's like, how can they not see this stuff? And people just train themselves not to see. It's too painful for whatever reason.
Linda, I
Yeah.
could literally talk to you for hours. You're so interesting, and your stories are so interesting. The way you articulate things, it really resonates with me. I think hearing your experiences is just fascinating. On a closing thought, then, a lot of people who listen to this podcast, they are, people that are interested in their soul, psychic, how to unlock their intuition. I'm going to ask this for the more well, I'm going to say people at the start of their journey, but it could be people at any stage of their journey. I go down rabbit holes on this podcast, Lindsay. You'll come to realize that I start a question, but then I ask myself a question, then we go round in a circle. The question is, from all your years of experience, I'm going to ask it on behalf of myself. From all your years of experience, I want to connect with the spirit world. At times I feel they're there, at times I feel they're not, and I'm struggling, having an ADHD brain, to
Mm.
understand how to get into that power and shut this human mind off.
Yeah.
Where should I go, Linda? Because I'm sure there's going to be loads of people listening who say meditation isn't for me. This isn't working for me. I can't get in the right. What would you say to me and all these people, Linda?
So the minute you said that, it's like my team were like jumping in, and they do that sometimes, don't they? And
Mm,
they took me very deep down, and to the breath, and to grounding. Grounding is very, very important. The deeper we dig, the higher we can reach. And we are reaching for the stars, literally, in the work that we do. And so, for you and for anyone else who has a busy mind in whatever form, it is just about being inside the breath and being inside the heartbeat, and just going to the truth of the heart. And meditation, in terms of quietening your mind, is not a good training for mediumship. We need to know what the stillness is. We need to know what the silence is when we're sitting in the power. So we need to have a sense of that. We need to know where our loved ones are coming in, because we're moving our vibration to a different point. So you can have a busy mind and you can still move your vibration. So you just do it by being in the body. And just that's what happened the minute you said that. So I wanted to immediately say, okay, breathe,
how do you
breathe.
I love that. Honestly, it blew me away. I couldn't stop writing notes, Linda. How do you advise people to? Because you said something there about it's not about quieting the mind, it's about raising the vibration. How would you advise one to raise their vibration? How do you do that?
So spirit is, I love this because I can do it on the screen, so it's much more effective. Spirit is high. They're in the higher vibrations. Humans are down here.
Hmm.
And positivity, love, gratitude, joy are positive vibrations are up here.
Hmm.
Love is up here. Love is what connects us. Love is the channel to spirit. That's why the minute you start to kind of expand your auric field and you start to feel into the different energy bodies, once you get to that emotional body, you're just like, oh, suddenly you have this inpouring of love because you're starting to feel the spirit world. And so that's where they live. They live in that field of love. So you raise your vibration by getting into the feeling of the address of the spirit world, which is those high vibrational emotions that they are of unconditional love. And the minute you know that, and the minute you can kind of sense into your bodies, and I'm kind of trying to use words, but actually meditations, I do a lot of meditations in my courses, not the kind of meditations that quietens the mind, although it does do that in a way, but guides you through the different energy bodies into the different subtle realms, just to be able to experiencing it, and then your body learns it. And that puts the mind aside because your body knows what to do. I mean, I didn't think to myself, okay, I have to answer Jason's question here, make sure that I'm answering the right thing. It's like I felt it. I just felt my spirit team just come in and just pull me down. Just pull me down,
Mm.
embody the love of spirit. And it just calms you immediately. When you've done, I mean, I know you've done mediumship. So you know that feeling.
You do, but I think that yeah, I think the point I'm at
Yeah.
is I'm still in the mind space of trying to understand how to get to the place where I know how to do it default. But I think I think where that stems back to is the fact that I'm not sticking to one method, which is why when you were saying about the 60s and the just leaning into it and experimenting, I'm doing the probably typical thing of there being too much resource, trying something but not sticking to it long enough and moving on. So you, and that's the funny thing about this journey. We're all on this journey at different places at different points, and sometimes no matter what you're told, you have to come to realize it and
Yes.
experience it yourself.
Yeah.
Because some things will resonate, some things won't stick, some things you won't take in because you're not in the right place. And then sometimes I find myself looking back at my notebook, and I'm sure I'm going to do this, and I'll say to myself, that thing Linda said is profound. Where was that? And it just hits me at that moment. So you do go, it's funny when you say a lot of this because a lot of it does resonate because it's kind of lived experience. But
The thing is that what happens with the mind, the bit about the mind that's problematic, is that that link, that feeling. They probably come through, you probably start to get the feeling from behind, right?
I do, yes, I do.
Okay, so when they come close, right? And that's great. So what happens when you said sometimes they're here, sometimes they're not? They are always here. They never go anywhere. Mediums that say, oh, your loved one's left. That's not true. We leave, they don't. And the way that we leave
Mm.
is by putting the mind in the way, by saying, oh, I'm not doing it right. How am I doing it? For you, you're very Pac-Man as well, lots of
Mm.
Mercury, Gemini kind of energy or whatever. I don't know what's going on in your chart, but you kind of like want lots of information. So it's like, how am I doing this? This is really interesting. What's going on here? Blah, blah, blah. But also a lot of people, a lot of mediums, like, I'm never going to do this. No one loves me enough to help me with this on the other side. The spirit doesn't exist. I'm imagining it. All the millions of different words and tricks and phrases that get stuck in our mind that stops us. And the minute you get one of those, you're pulled down. out of that
Mm.
vibration. So it's all about trust, just saying, yeah, look, I know they're always here. Look at the amazing experiences I've had. Why would they go? You know, why would they? It makes no sense that they come and then they go and then they come and then they go again. You know, it's like they turn up at a spiritualist church meeting and then off they go to their lounges on the other side of life, you know, or are they in the departure lounge first, you know, or they take off and come down here? Or it's like, no, they're constantly here around us all the time and they turn up whenever we need them in the dreams,
I'm
in
laughing so much because it's
experiences.
so funny because I've asked myself this a lot, you know, and I'm still trying to figure out how it works myself. And it is the way you describe it is it is funny because we've all been there, a lot of us, and we ask ourselves these questions. And then I guess you get to that point in your development where, you know, more becomes apparent. Linda,
Yeah.
I'm blown away by this conversation. I'm not going to lie. It's been the most wonderful hour, and obviously for people that are kind of interested to what, and I'm sure there's going to be lots of people very interested to find out more about you because we've barely even scratched the tip or the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
Where can people, because you do tuition as well, and where can people go to find out more about you, your services, what you do, and so on?
Okay. So lindarauchmedium.com is my website. It's really
We'll
easy
put
to
it in the show notes. Don't worry
okay.
about that.
So it's some of what I do is in that, but enough to be able to get in touch with me. Most of my course, in fact, I have some Udemy courses, little ones that I did quite a while ago, but the current stuff is all through Facebook. So you'll find me on Facebook, Linda Rauch Masterclasses, and you'll find them all. So I do three. I do tarot, I do psychic mediumship, and I do witchcraft. So those are the three that I teach in cycles ongoing. And the thing I love to do and I think is very important and I really promote for anyone who's doing it or anyone wants to do it is spiritual assessments, because what happens to us is that we get stuck along the way. We need accountability. You get stuck with a certain teacher and you know, you learn the habits and the good stuff and the bad stuff of that teacher. We tend to workshop hop a lot as developing as mediums. So we'll go for a week to Arthur Findlay, or we'll go off to College Psychic or whatever. We'll do a week and then we go to another trance workshop and we learn the same things in the first 2 days and then we're bored, and then we might learn one or two things later on, if you know, fifth
Mm.
trance workshop in, you know, down the line. And so there's a lot of kind of disjointedness in the training
You're
of
so right about that because even I'm finding that myself. And then you don't remember it because another teacher says another way, and then you just get to the point
yeah.
where you're confused.
Yeah, exactly. So what I do is with my students is that I give them all the basics in the master classes, and then there's an advanced level where there's ongoing kind of Q&A, and then they can come and see me for like individual supervision in a way, so where I watch what they're doing. But that's one thing. But the most important thing is to find somebody who you can trust, who is going to say to you, okay, this is what's going on for you right now. These are the blockages. This is why you're not progressing, or this is you know, this shows you are progressing, and just guide them, because we all
Mm.
struggle to live in a human reality when we are so sensitive and we know there's so much more. And so it's like going to the doctor for a checkup or taking your car for an MOT. Make sure that you have some guidance, some mentorship or some guidance, even if it's for a period of time, and then you might outgrow them and go to someone else, whatever. But it's that kind of overseeing that I think is really important, that I wish I'd had. This is why I've kind of created the courses the way that I have, because I wish I'd have had that going through
Mm.
my process. It would have been really, really helpful. I'd just go from, you know, to one psychic, I'd get a reading, or a medium getting another reading. So I get little bits here, little bits there. And sometimes it conflicted, sometimes it was the same. It's just like, you know, what am I doing? What's my soul's journey? What's my mission here? You know,
You
what's it
need
all about?
consistency. I think one-off bits of where you've just met someone, then you question their validity, how valid the points they're making are. You then but someone's seeing you over that consistent period of time that you've got a relationship with, it makes a difference. And the reason I relate to it so much is I think that I've been there, and then you sort of, yeah, there's a lot to be said for sticking with one person. I think for a period, it's like, you know, I don't know why it is a mediumship. I think it's just the very nature of it. But you do jump. In what other discipline would you do that? You wouldn't go to a different piano teacher every 2 weeks. So and it's funny. Yeah, maybe it's just the world of mediumship. Who knows? Linda, thank you so much. I've honestly enjoyed the conversation so much, and I'm sure everyone listening has enjoyed it as much. And if you do want to find out more about Linda, just go to the show notes of this episode, where you'll be able to connect with Linda, find out about what she's doing on Facebook and her courses and so on. Linda, thank you.
Pleasure. It was really great. I loved it. I love talking about myself. So, you know, anytime, just bring me on, put me in front of the camera, and I'll just go.
Well,
That'd be it.
honestly, we've barely scratched the tip of the iceberg, so I see that being such a realistic prospect in the future. Linda, thank you.
No problem. Fantastic. Thank you so much.